Grand Rising, I'm Raan Oosha, and welcome to show number 7 on Conversations on Art, a program which was designed to bring artists in so we can talk about their work, their creativity, their process. And the aim was that hopefully we can learn from each other and even inspire each other to talk about the challenges, the difficulties, the joys of creating work. So today I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, textile artist and painter, Annie. Grand Rising, Annie.
Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising.
Joining us today is Kweku. Grand Rising, Kweku.
Grand Rising.
And today's guest, scriptwriter Robin. Grand Rising, Robin.
Grand Rising, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
So I'll lay a bit of background. I've known Robin basically all my life, and we grew up watching movies. And so Robin's house had about 150 movies, and it was numbered, I remember, numbered movies. So if you wanted to watch a film, you went to Robin's house. And we always grew up and we would discuss, and as we got older, we went to the cinema, and we would always discuss ideas for movies and scripts and stories that we would like to tell. And so Robin kind of helped foster my love of cinema. So Robin, can you tell us about the first movie that really inspired you?
Yeah, it's quite surprising. So let me give you some background. When you asked me to do this, I was shocked, and it might come as a surprise to you, but I'd forgotten that I love cinema. I completely forgot, and I was like, what have I been? Why is Brian? Why has Raan asked me to do this show? Because I'm not an artist. In my mind, I was like, I really don't feel I have anything to offer here. And then, I was searching through the old grey matter and thinking, well, why did Brian ask me to do that? And all of a sudden, because I'm so focused on other things like running businesses and, doing property or doing these things, I there was this little, like they say that in darkness, there's this, it can't, even a little glimmer of light can, you can't stop it. And I was like, wow, yeah, I remember. And all what you just reminded me, what you just said reminded me of in our house, I lived in the front room, and the front room, Annie used to play the piano, but then, she got older, she stopped playing, and then the piano became the video library. So all of the videos were stored on top of the piano, and as you said, everything was numbered. I knew what movie was there, I knew what was coming out. I had the inside edge on scoop on every movie that was coming out because before they would come out in America before they'd come out in the UK. And I'd have, dare I say, I'd have copies of these American movies to distribute to my friends, wherever, because I wanted to share that joy and the beauty. But I forgot. Life took over. And I was focused on all these other things. And slowly but surely, I stopped going to the cinema. I stopped renting videos. I stopped doing everything, and my focus was on making money or making a success or doing things that really I don't love to do. I was doing them because I kind of got forced down a channel of I guess the rat race, trying to make ends meet, trying to be successful, and it's not until you went to me, Robin, can you join us on this thing? And I went, oh my goodness. So I started thinking about the films I used to watch and how much joy and happiness I used to get from it. And, when we would talk at Triangle, or, just going out, even walking from my house to your house was a great conversation. We'd go to Triangle, we'd go under the bridge, to the bridges and onto Fernley Road and just chat and be animated and be joyous. And so to answer your question, there were a number of films that influenced me, and I guess I was very much influenced by pop culture if you look back at it now. So and you know, it's kind of like Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson came out with Thriller, there was MTV and all these other things coming out, and it was kind of similar for me that the video, you know, the VHS video, Betamax was out of the way, VHS was there, and there was this influx of Blockbuster Video and, you know, all these great places you can go and get these videotapes. So for me, it was very much the pop culture of the 70s and the 80s that influenced me into what I like. So, you know, I loved films like Rocky, which was probably one of the first films that I remember having an effect on me. And I think it's not only because it's a fantastic story, or it's about the character and what that character goes through to become, to succeed in a sense. In fact, he fails at the end, but everyone still loves him. So the fact that his journey was so inspiring, there's kind of similarities that you kind of relate to in these different characters, and obviously, it's the cinematic events of the like Star Wars sagas coming out, and which was great. But yeah, and then you got the comedy elements. So we all like to laugh, and for me, one of the greatest films, and I still watch it today, and it makes me smile, is Blazing Saddles. I cannot stop laughing at this. It is dated. Yeah, you know what? It's probably politically incorrect in so many ways. But wow, it makes me laugh. It makes me smile, and that for me was the idea behind. And I actually didn't realize this until you asked me the question, because I had to go into my head and find this. I was like, well, why did I like that? And I think it took me away from where I was, because I was at a boarding school. I was doing work. I was focused on all these things. I was playing sports I didn't like to play. I never played rugby. Who played rugby in from where we were? We went from playing football. I went from kicking a ball to carrying a ball. And I was like, what's going on here? I went from, playing cricket to holding a hockey stick. What's all that about? It was so many things that so many challenges I had, that I was, always learning something great. And you look back and it's a fantastic experience, but I needed an escape. I needed something on the other side to take me away and give me some joy and give me some escapism. And that's what I found in cinema.
Yeah, I remember many kind of conversations. Can you remember any that we had, or that you may have had by yourself, where you thought of actually writing down some of your own ideas for a story?
Yeah, I remember a lot, because everyone always says have a pen and paper by your bedside, or have a notebook in your pocket and carry it around with you and write your ideas down. I mean, it's so much easier in this day and age. You can just pick up your iPhone and you can put a voice message and remember, speak your ideas. I did it at certain times, and I was influenced to write about things that I knew about. Or sorry, I was, I went to a few screenwriting classes and stuff, because I really wanted to make a go of this. And I would attend those sort of classes, and we'd all go through our different stories, and I could only write about what I knew about. And because I did law, and I went to law school, and I worked at a big law firm, I wanted to write one about law. And that's another show that really influenced me, LA Law. That was one of the reasons I wanted to be a lawyer. It was Jimmy Smith's, Cifuentes with his diamond stud. He was the man. Who else was there? He won all the cases. He was ethnic. He, the women loved him. He had money. He had everything. Why wouldn't you want to be him? So I went to law school. I did that. I went and I worked in a law firm, and it couldn't have been further from the truth for me, because my first day in the law firm was a 36-hour day. I was photocopying. I was, you know, taking orders. I was the minion. I had nothing. And I was like, my God, what have I done? You know, the realities of world just, you know, just came onto me. And it was like, you know, it was crazy. So I started writing a bit about law, those types of things. So, you know, the books by John Grisham and these types of things were out at the same sort of time. Rainmaker, Pelican Brief. It's like, wow, yeah, we could really do something here. But if I look back now, even though I had these ideas, I always struggled to, one, get them down in paper because I wasn't sure about the format and the structure for movies at the time. Secondly, the other problem I really struggled with was character. And where I struggled, because, you know, when you're 21 years old, I hadn't really done anything except play football or play sport, or, you know, I couldn't empathize with the characters. I couldn't round out my characters to make them real. You know, I really struggled. And even till today, I still struggle with that point because, you know, they say to you, write what you know, write what you feel. But I didn't really know anything. And I certainly didn't feel anything. It was, you know, it's part of that growing up process for me. So I tried to focus on those bits, and, you know, even trying to get the synopsis down and writing it in a way that was, what's the word I'm looking for? That was, you know, I guess understandable and coherent to, because you kind of got to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's reading that. And I really, really struggled with that. But I did try and focus on what I knew. If that answers your question. It's like,
Can I just come in here, ask you a question, Robin?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. In relation to character forming in your writing, did you not get anyone to proofread it just to get a bit of feedback at that early stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So a friend of mine was who's actually in software, and his wife was a lawyer. So we kind of met over drinks, and we you know, we would share ideas. And he said, look, Robin, I'm doing this writing class, script writing class at Central St. Martin. So why don't you just come along? It's one day a week. We all sit down and we review our scripts. And the person that ran it was a producer. So he was a producer, and you know, he kind of knew, you know, when you get that feeling that something's right, he could read something and he knew, yep, that's right. This is missing this, you know, this scene is missing a beat, you know, there's no movement, there's no need for this, you know, he had it. So we would take our screenplays, our treatments, our synopsises, certain acts, or, you know, certain scenes that we're writing, we would all review them together. So we did a lot of work also on character, and you know, how to build your character. I read books, etc. And yeah, it does help. And the more you write, the more your kind of character grows as well. But that was something I really struggled with.
Right. So,
especially also writing for a woman. You know, these types of things I struggled with, because, you know, the idea was to have lots of different storylines, subplots, etc. And that's somewhere I really struggled.
right. Okay. That's interesting, because I don't really write much at all. I have written a few bits and pieces, and it is a struggle. But at the same time, I found it like you're going on a journey, and when you sort of have ideas that then start to evolve, your characters then develop. And for me, that was kind of something which I wished really I'd continued with. I don't do any writing now, but I think I would like to return to it later, you know, when I retire, I've got more time on my hands, you know. But the small things that I did write, I gave to like work colleagues and things just to get some feedback. And it was really quite nice to see people like engrossed and say, oh, that's an idea. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, when's the next bit, you know? So for me, that was like encouragement. But then other things got in the way, you know, work and other bits and pieces, and it just fell by the wayside. So I think whatever you do, you just got to stick at it, haven't you, really?
Yeah, I agree with you, because a lot of it is perseverance. Yeah, you know, I was very fortunate. I went to a great school, but I didn't really learn anything at school. The one thing I learned at school was what was the school motto, which is Omnia Vinces Perseverando, which is Latin for perseverance conquers all. And you just got to stick, and it's the only thing that stuck in my mind. I didn't actually learn it at school. I learned it on the induction day when I went to school, because I was like, what the hell is that? You know, I'd never seen Latin before. I was only like 10 years old, but that's what I learned. It stuck with me all my life. So perseverance is something that, yeah, you know, we all have down days. You know, I'll be the first to say, you know, especially now with the challenges everyone has. You know, I've had some horrible days during lockdown, where, you know, your mind is racing. It's questioning you, questioning your spirit, what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you are, all these things.
Yeah.
You know, it's trying to persevere. So what I did when I was doing it, I would try and set a time aside and try and form a habit. And so, example, when I was living at home, I think Annie was there at the time, I would try and wake up at 8 a.m. I would do some exercise, but then I'd say, right, I've got half hour, set the timer, and I'd write. And I'd try and write as much as I could. Some days it would be great. Some days I'd be sitting there, you know, I'd be glum. I just, you know, it just wouldn't happen. But that's the kind of thing I would try and do, make it a habit.
What are you currently working on?
So at the moment, and I think this is why Brian asked me the question. So I've just launched a cybersecurity company. So our goal is really to simplify cybersecurity, because I believe it's one of the most complex things out there, because there's so many different bits of software. There's artificial intelligence, all these different things out there. You know, what are these vulnerabilities? We tried to make it simple. So we created a framework called HALT, and it's called HALT, excuse me, which stands for Harden, Automate, Limit, and Train. So those are the kind of elements of the framework we've created. And what we decided to do, which was really strange, so everything kind of came full circle. We realized that, you know, we people love to hear stories. You know, we all, you know, get enthused. We, you know, get excited by stories. We learn so much better. It's so much easier to hear a story than read boring text from a book that you're flicking through that doesn't mean anything to you. So we said, well, why don't we tell some of our training material as stories? And we started writing stories. So I think we created some animations. I think I sent one to Annie and also to Brian. So to Raan, and he I think maybe that's one of the reasons. So we were able to write these really 1 minute mini kind of animations, these micro animations, to get a point across, but we told it as a story. So we tried to get all the elements in there, and I have actually really enjoyed doing it. It's hard, really is hard, but it started to refocus me and find a bit of joy, a bit of, you know, a bit of light in that darkness of all these bits, and it's really helping. So
these stories, are they based on real accounts?
Yes, absolutely. So what we do is we one of the challenges we found is that people don't believe it's real. Hackers, you can't see them. You know, hackers happen, you know, there are teams of people, you know, let's say in India or wherever, you know, people in Rwanda who have access to a cafe who can't make ends meet. They can download some software, set up a ransomware, bang, send it out. Money just keeps pouring in. Can't blame them. They've got to put money on the table for their kids, but no one here sees them, so they don't believe it's real. So we thought, well, you know what, we need to try and get that message across to people, so they believe that, look, this is something that's happening and it's going to affect you. Because the reality is, when people are victims of cyber attack, everything stops, you know. Yeah, you've got machines, they're infected. Yeah, go ahead.
From that point of view, you know, you're documenting an event that actually happened. How then do you use your creativity, right, in an artistic sense, if you like, to pare that down to like a minute animation? You know, what process do you go from?
That is a really good question. So we find an example. Let's say, for instance, it's in the Times or in a journal of an event that's happened. Let's say, for instance, a law firm has been hacked and they've sent £600,000 to a hacker when they thought they were sending it to their client. We'll take the main elements of the story, and then we'll put it into like a little document and say, right, what are the elements here? So there's a law firm, there's a client, you know, what's the incident here? Oh, they, you know, they received an email to change their bank account details. What happened? You know, so you kind of break it down and you put it into the structure of a story. And then you add a few extra elements because we like to obfuscate things. So we don't want to make it too obvious. And then we, you know, we add bits, take bits away, and, you know, it goes through quite a review process. And then we record it to ourselves, we listen to it, and it goes through like an editing. And you know what, you know, some certain bits end up on the cutting room floor, and, you know, you got to do another version. And yeah, that's pretty much the process. So, but then we will tell them this is based on a real story to real people, to hammer that point home.
Okay.
So Robin,
Yes.
when you completed that first script, what happened? What was going through you about what to do with it next? Did you have any doubts, or were you unsure about what to do next, or where to go once you had that first script?
Yeah, so I wrote the first script with a friend of mine from school called Tim, and Tim was instrumental in forcing me to carry on to do it. And Tim did a lot of it as well. So we put it together, and, you know, honestly, I look back now and I don't think we knew what to do with it. We were just delighted we'd finished it. And, you know, you look at magazines like Variety and Screen magazines, and you see all the articles, you know, people looking for screenplays. So I think what we did, we found a few, I think they were kind of agents, and we sent the scripts to them, and some people read it and some people said it's okay. But we didn't really pursue it any further because we sent it to a few kind of screen doctor kind of people, and they said, look, you've got a decent idea, but you haven't structured it right. And that's where we kind of realized that even though you have these ideas, these treatments, we hadn't put it into the right kind of story structure. And that's where I found, so a friend of my other sister, Frances, called Isabel, she introduced me to a book called Story by Robert McKee. And this guy is the ultimate screen doctor, you know, screenwriter. He does week-long presentations and seminars that people pay thousands of pounds to join. And he created a book called Story, and I started reading that, and you realize about the structure, that everything you go and see in the cinema, everything looks different, but everything's following the same structure. And that's how we realized that, oh, we need to do some work with this screenplay and put it into the structure to make sure all the elements of the story are there before taking it out again to market. And honestly, that's when kind of life took over, because I know Tim used to do a lot of investing online. He was kind of one of these first people to do his trading from home. So he started doing that, and he got a job, and I was at law school and getting actually into work. So life takes over. And unfortunately, we just started forgetting, we just let it slide.
Annie, I want to bring you in as well here, Annie.
Sure.
Is that what happens? I mean, it's the both Robin and Annie, is that, and Kwaku as well, that we grew up with all these ideas and inspirations, you know, of things we like to do, but somehow, you know, the other part of life takes over, and it takes over more and more. And so we have our script or painting or story, and it's sitting on the side over there, and we leave it there, and it collects dust. And so is that what kind of happens to us, you know, that we spend so much of our time and thinking, doing other things, that we let our kind of passions kind of slide? Annie?
I think listening to Robin, this is what happens. We chase something else, and then we lose some of ourselves with it. I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. I'm very luckily I have a really nice position where I am at the moment. So me not creating, I have come to realize really creates a huge gap in me, because it is such a big part of me. And I think listening to Robin, I think that part of him, that creativity, because growing up, he introduced me to movies like Blazing Saddles, you know, to Mel Brooks, you know, to things like Frankenstein. You know, I didn't watch those movies. You know, we had Mr. Video in Balham. We were always at Mr. Video. You know, that's where we all used to get our videos. But again, yes, we were so avid. You know, we just wanted to drink in every movie. You know, everything. So I was very lucky that Robin had a real thirst for movies, because I'm sure, like yourself, Ron, we all were able to drink that all, you know, we drank that all in, you know, we were like, yeah, that's fantastic, you know, oh man, this is great, you know, I've never, you know, and still to this day, you know, I watch, as Robin says, Blazing Saddles, and it is, you know, it is not PC, but it is really funny. And Young Frankenstein is super funny too, you know, watching Frankenstein, who is just a joke really, but fantastic. The characters are really wonderful, the way that it's in black and white. You know, that craziness of Mel Brooks and all of the other characters that he has in them. What I'm learning now is we're all here and we all have a purpose. And a lot of us get distracted from that, and within that we lose a lot of why we're here, and we lose a lot of joy. And Robin said that it was joyous, you know, to watch these movies are joyous. That was a joyous time. And then what happens, you slowly close yourself off. So doors are shutting, and what happens is that living life, creating, you know, money, creating these other things, and as you notice, you shut more and more and more of yourself off to who you really are and to what gives you the most joy. So I think it's when Ryan said that he'd invited Robin to speak, I thought that was fantastic, because I think it would open up another doorway for him back to, because it's never late, never. I don't think I'd been creative for over 10 years, but you never stop having those feelings. So you never stop finding joy from watching a movie, you know, from looking at artwork, from photography, or, you know, whatever brings you joy there'll always be life has a way of sort of opening up a little doorway for you to have a little peep into that. And it's really, if you're open enough to grab it again. And I think definitely Robin can, anybody can. Quicker you can go back and do your writing. You know, none of us are dead, we're all still breathing. So it's really, you know, just it, and it really is. And that's something that Ron said to me, because I had a real issue. Oh my God, I'm not being creative. What am I doing? So I wasted so much time doing that. And what Ron said to me is just do something every day. Just do a little bit every day. Robin said it, you know, if you don't produce anything, that's fine. That's wonderful. Just keep doing it and it will come. And trust me, it is exactly as Ron says, it does come, and you do get the breakthrough. Of course, you get days where you're like, oh my God, I can't do this, or what is this, you know, but I know, you know, Robin is very creative, hugely creative, from the music to you know, having seen the small infomercial that you did, I was like, wow, that's like, as you know, as somebody looking at that, a potential client, I was like, yeah, I understand that. I totally got what message you were putting across. And as we've spoken about the whole process of it, and it wasn't that easy, then you had to, you know, go back and bring it down to, you know, to make a minute sounds really easy.
Yeah.
But when I had conversations with you, it wasn't as easy as, you know, oh yeah, a minute sounds great. You know, a minute could be great if, you know, time is flying by. If you're watching paint dry, that can take forever. If something is arduous, you know, a minute can be a long time. When you're exercising, doing a hardcore exercise, 1 minute can feel like an hour. So yeah, what I hope for you, Rob, that, you know, doing this little project has opened that back up for you, because that would be, you know, I'd be so proud of you if you went back and you picked that back up again, and you know, you did something with it, because it would give you back some of Robin, you know, it would give you back some of your joy. Yeah. So when Ron said you were coming on, it was like, yeah, this is fantastic. This is a great opportunity.
Before Robin comes in here, I was just going to say this point, because Robin, you said before about finding difficulty with character and why I asked you on here. So I asked you on not really because of your recent project.
Oh, okay.
I asked you on because how we see you as a creative artist. And that's how I view you. And when you say about difficulty writing character, I think that with you, you saw character very complete. And I'll tell you why I say this. Because you had friends from so many different diverse backgrounds. You could understand characters, innate understanding of character, I felt. So it's interesting when you said that you found difficulty writing character, when a lot of your ability on the sports field and as friends was bringing in diverse characters. It seemed like your life was always about, you knew this one from this background, very well off, very poor, this side of the street, that side of the street, from all different backgrounds. And you were pulling in all of these characters. So when you said you had trouble, I was thinking, I first thought was, but your gift was characters. What do you say about that?
The first thing that comes to my mind is, if you want to hide something from someone, you put it right in front of their face. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, because once again, I didn't even think about that. And now you got me thinking. It's like, well, wow, yeah, I've been incredibly fortunate to meet, you know, everyone, you know, you name it, different countries, different backgrounds, different cultures, you know, different mindsets. And yeah, I now you mention it, I can get on and I can bring people together. I never think about that though. It just kind of happens. It's when I start thinking about it, it's like, oh my goodness, what does this guy do? And you know, where should he be going? What's his story arc? What's going on here? And it's a blank. It's like, you know, so yeah, Brian, I've learned a lot today about myself. So it's like, you know, it's it is a real challenge. So yeah, as I say, it's been maybe in front of my face all the time. I didn't believe, and I come back to the point is, you both said wonderful things about me, which is it's so nice to hear. And the problem is I didn't see myself like that. So, you know, my brain is working a different way. My brain is you know, is working. Oh, you didn't do this. You couldn't do that. you don't know character, you don't know structure, and all these negatives, you know, is you know, I remember watching Pretty Woman, and Julia Roberts says it's always easier to believe the bad things. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it was one of the most poignant points in that film. And I think the human brain, from what I've been learning, you know, we're attuned to focus on the negative. And I think all these negatives have built up, and they certainly haven't made a positive. But today, you know, and slowly finding that little bit of light, that's you know, there's a crack in the window and the light's starting to come through. You know, you're opening up that window a bit more and the sun is coming through. It's yeah, it does help you reconnect. And yeah, because as I say, I never saw myself, and you know, as an artist. And when you said, come join us on this artist show, I'm like, well, I'm not an artist. What are you talking about? I'm just a joker, you know. I'm just doing these other things. I'm not a I don't do you know. But you know, yeah, I guess there certainly is, there's art in so many different forms. It comes in so many different flavors. And you know, as Annie was saying, you know, I've closed the door onto it. You know, that's been a real challenge for me.
Do you know who comes to mind? And I know all of us will know John Sullivan, who wrote Only Fools. Now, a lot of his characters were based on people that he knew. And he, I believe, grew up around Ballon Market or one of the markets. So it reminded me, and what Raan said, all of these characters are around you every day. You hear a lot of comedians that watch people. And people watching is the most hilarious, most insightful, thought-provoking that you can do, because you can pick up loads of ideas and tips from, as Raan just said, people around you. You know, and I know your background because we grew up together. So we grew up with a very diverse, you know, a group of people.
I think it's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Oh, well, I was going to say that I think it's interesting that you can observe people or situations around you. You can document them, but the spark of imagination and creativity in order to convey to others essence of a particular person or something. Now that you know, you can have diversity all around you, you can be aware of it, but how then do you put it all together into like a flowing you know, if you're writing stuff, you're writing a story or whatever it is, even if it's factual, to make that character come alive, I still think it needs some sort of imagination going on inside your head. I mean, my partner Kim, she does all of the things you can see behind, but she reckons that she has no imagination. That's the thing. And I think, well, how can you not have any imagination? You know, just imagine this, imagine that. But maybe people can collect things in their head and document things in a maybe formal way, whether you're writing or taking photographs or painting stuff, but actually to create something from the information and bits and pieces that you have to make it a coherent story, if you like. I mean, you can get good storytellers that maybe don't understand structure or, you know, a template you might use for a play or something. Do I make sense in that?
Yeah, you absolutely do. Imagination. So whilst we've been doing this, I've been working with a guy who I now class as a friend. His name's Stuart. He is one of the most insightful people I've ever met, and he's taught me that imagination is actually a bit of a process. We all have it. You just need to ask yourself a different question. And you just keep, and you know, when you get to a point where I don't know what's going on, ask yourself a different question. Get to a start, ask yourself a different question. It may be better, it may be worse. And then things start to flow. and that's what I was doing for a while. And because I haven't made it a habit yet, you go back into I've gone back into my old ways. But yeah, that's the only thing I can say. I think we all have it. I think you're absolutely right. It's just, how do we pull that out? And I think it's a process, and you can form that habit of just asking a better question.
Mm-hmm.
Could I ask you, because I'm coming in quite blind here. So when you have an idea for a script, how do you formulate your characters then? Do you do them and say, right, okay, so you have to think of the thought process of that person. So it's completely creating a personality then, so how have you gone about putting together, let's say, your male character to your female character?
So I used to try and do it in a straight line. I'd start at the beginning and try and end up at the end. But what happened is there are so many ways to get from A to B. You can jump on a bus, you can take the tube, you can take the subway, you can blah, blah, blah. There are so many ways to get there. And what I've learned is, and this is quite recent, why don't you start at the end and work backwards? Because there's only one point to hit then. So you start at the end and you work backwards to the front. And that way I've had so much more joy, because going forward, my head was being in a spin, because it was like, oh my gosh, how do I get here? How do I get there? I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. And I wasn't getting anywhere. But then when, in fact, my friend Stuart said, look, Robin, just start at the end. And I went, oh my goodness, it made so much sense. And then you work backwards, because there's only one way. You're only going to one point at the end. So if you understand where your characters are at the end, you figure out the arc where they're at the beginning. And that I've found so much more useful. It saves me time. If I had hair, I'm sure I would have still kept it. It would have been a lot easier. So yeah, that's the way I'd recommend doing it now. And where they want to go to, what their challenges are, what happens to them in their life, the big incident. You set them up. What's the big incident that happens to them, and then it's like, they try and they fail, and then they say, look, I want to give it one more chance to get it, and that's how you get to the act 3, and then it ends, and they change as a person. They need to change. They've learned something through that story, that arc of where they want to get to, and they become a different and hopefully a better person, but not always. It really depends on the story.
Do you think that's, sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that's applicable just to storytelling and writing? Because you can't just start at the end, say with photography, can you?
Yeah. That's a good point. Could you think about the result that you want to achieve? That's kind of starting at the end, because then right, I want to create look, forgive me, I don't know much about photography, so I want to create, I don't know anything about photography, so, I want to create this, and then you work back and say, how do I create that? Mm-hmm. And at least then you've got a point that you want to get to. I want to create a picture that has this kind of feeling, or from this angle or whatever. And what's the best way to do that?
Well, I think that works to a certain extent, but I think with writing in particular, unless you are actually doing a factual, documentary kind of thing, I think if it's completely imaginative, then you can start at the end and work backwards. I think that's a very good way of doing it, in fact. I'm just wondering if you could apply that process to sort of all forms of art.
I do that with my painting. So generally, sometimes I have a finished idea in my head, and then you work yourself towards it. It may not finish exactly as what you envisage, because sometimes, you know, other elements come in, but a lot of the time I have an idea for a finished picture or image, and 9 times out of 10 it does go that way. But I would think it.
I think from what Robin was saying, if you start at the beginning and go through, there are so many different options and ways you can go. If you start at the end and work backwards, it's a lot clearer. I'm just wondering how that can be applied to other forms of art, though.
I think in these kind of things, whether it comes to where you're starting, I think maybe we can shatter all concepts of what it should be done. Maybe there are some processes where we're going to start in what we conceive as being the middle. In this project, I have a finish. I know exactly where it ends. I'm going to make my road from the end and I'm going to work myself backwards. Another way, you're going to be at the beginning. So maybe it's not just whether it be music or painting or art, maybe it's that in that particular project where we will have an understanding of where to go and maybe not to question it. I feel I can come from here. I feel maybe the important thing is just to go from where you are. If you know where you are and you're at the end of the piece, you know where the end, then start from there. If you kind of figure out what the middle bit's like, then start from there. And I think the same comes with feelings. Maybe if you're painting or writing and you don't know what to write or paint, then paint and write, I don't know what to do. What does I don't know what to do look like in a painting? Maybe the character, I'm sitting here and my character is not sure what to do. Maybe I'll write from my character not knowing what to do. And something will come from that. I can't remember who said it now, don't disavow a feeling, because sometimes I think in the moment, or even in boredom, do you know what? I can't be bothered to write today. Interesting. My character today can't be bothered. Let me go with that. So that way you're never disavowing, you're never stuck to the end or the middle or the beginning. It depends on where you are in that moment, in the here and the now. And I think maybe that goes to whatever endeavor you're doing. And then that way it's always fresh. It's kind of effortless. You don't need to force it because you're starting from where you are. And that is I think maybe that's the childlike imagination in all of us. Starting, and it brings that fresh creativity, nothing's forced, and we're going with the flow. So the stream is flowing that way rather than get our boat going that way. Let's go with the streams going. And maybe in all endeavors, just to be from where you are, and it'd be different on different projects, be different with different ideas, and it will be different with different people depending on who we're working with. So maybe it's to let a lot of these concepts fall, and because we're all unique, yes, we're not going to be the same from one day to the next or different projects.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And I think, so Robin, and all of you, what does love and compassion, what does that, is there a connection with that, with what you do in your writing?
As in
expressing it from yourself as a self-expressive art form.
It's funny you mentioned football earlier, and I don't know why I'm mentioning this, but I will, because I'm going to go with the flow. So I think the only time I ever really thought I was expressive was on the football pitch. And because you know, the inhibitions go, you get into the zone, you can you can express your body, you can express what's in your mind. It was and at times it was effortless. On the flip side, at times it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Yet the day before I'd done exactly the same thing 100 times and it was completely easy. So I feel that if you come back to that word joy, if you've got joy and you've got happiness and you've got the love of what you want to do, in my experience, you can't fail. In fact, you don't fail. You might not succeed on a commercial level. That's completely different. But you can't fail because you're expressing yourself. And I don't think I've ever learned that difference, because for me, there was success on a commercial level was, you know, that was the only thing I was striving for, not the ability. I mean, when we played football, we did not get paid £100,000 a week. We paid to play football. You know what? We would be scrapping around for £1, £2, £5 for the subs. You know, we'd have to pay for the oranges at half time. We'd have to pay for pints at the pub afterwards or whatever it was. You know, that's love. That's the love. However, I think where I've struggled, and now I think about it, is having the love and the joy and the happiness in what I was doing, because then it's not actually work. You're actually just doing it because that's you. So I think if I were to have my time again, I would be focusing on what I love doing. And it brings me back to a point where I remember when I was at school and I was 18 years old, and these guys, some people came. We used to have outside speakers come into school, and this guy, he came along and he was in my house because everyone was divided into different houses, you know, for competitions, etc. at school. So he was an old boy from our school, and he was from our house, and we got talking because I was doing debating, and he was one of the judges, and I told him about my love for cinema and all these types of things, and we kept in contact, and he actually gave me an introductory letter to bring me on as a just an intern for the summer at his place. But I never did it. I never ever did it. And I so wish now that rather than focusing on studying and university, I would have gone the other route. Now, who knows what would have happened? But you kind of, there's that, I think people kind of call it the tipping point or whatever, or that kind of watershed moment where you kind of make your decisions of whether you go this way or you go that way. And that's kind of where I see that I followed the commercial success path rather than the love path, if that makes sense. I don't even know if I've answered your question because I was flowing. So it's like,
that's perfect. So I remember a couple of weeks ago, I called you here, and do you remember when I said about theatre?
Yes.
And I just thought, the reason I came up with that was that I just thought, you know, staging, you know how to create and how to direct. And I think you've done that in your professional life. You know where things go. And I just thought, wow, you could put something out there onto a stage. When I said that to you, did that raise anything, or did you think about that at all? Or
I'd never thought about theatre before, but you got me thinking, because one time, I don't know if you remember that whilst I was at law school, I finished law school and then I went to do Camp America for a summer. I don't know if you remember that. I went to upstate New York, and we were counselors, I think the name was, for kids whose parents would send them to camp for the summer. And so there were 3 different camps, and you had different kind of social standings or classes of kids. So, you know, you kind of had the upper middle class, the middle class, and then the last set of kids were, you know, the kids whose parents were addicted to methadone and they were drug dealers and these types of things. And the first week with these kids was a nightmare. My goodness, I thought I was in, you know, mean streets. It was, you know, it was what is going on. I couldn't wait for this camp to finish. And we had to tell a story for all of these kids. So they all, it was at a time because we had to do it in front of the entire camp. And these kids are like, Robin, you know, there's this Aladdin's out there, and you know, they had this you know, this kind of Arabic background that said, we want to do Aladdin. And so I wrote a script for them. And I can't believe I've forgotten this. So I wrote the script for them, and we had, you know, there was it was based on the Robin Williams kind of animation of Disney at the time. So one of the boys, you know, he had a bald head at that time, which was a unique look for a kid. So he was willing to paint himself blue. He wanted to be on stage. You had the kids wanting to, you know, be the genie. Someone wanted to be Princess Jasmine, etc. So to cut a long story short, we put it together. I'd never seen people so much passion to want to do this. And we had this tiny stage in this small hall, which everyone cramped into. And I directed them, and, you know, we got them to do this, with this, and you know, we had the everyone learnt their lines, you know, they were on their lines. One or two people forgot, so we had to prompt them, which just added to the beauty of the event anyway. So everyone just loved it. And it turned out, and that camp had been running for 50 years. And they've been doing this every single year for 50 years. And at the end of it, everyone stood up, standing ovation, and we got the highest score in camp history in 50 years of that camp. And I cried. The kids were, you know, and this was the point of the story. And I don't know why I told this, but these kids had an arc. They came in as gangsters. Yeah, for real. These kids came in as gangsters, wanting to beat people up, wanting to beat me up because I wasn't from America. I didn't know the mean streets, to crying and being kids at the end of it. And it was one of the most, you know, just being children, you know, being able to be innocent again. And it was one of those things that I've forgotten, and I don't know why I've forgotten it. You know, but it was one of the most remarkable experiences I've ever had as a human being, and I'd completely forgotten it. It's crazy. But yeah, coming back to it, that's the bit of theater that I think I could do that, because I've run companies, you know, I've run support teams all over the world, you know, in France, in the States, and I'd be running different cultures, different people, and you got to get to know everyone. Because as you said, everyone is different. Everyone responds to something different. And, you know, as a manager or a director, it's kind of your job to understand what makes them tick. And once you can understand that, you can then get the best out of that person. So yeah, I've done that. You know, I've run some big companies that have done well. I've run companies that have failed miserably as well. So, you know, and there's actually no difference between them. It's the same work that goes in. You know, you're still dealing with the same characters. It's exactly the same emotions, the amount of effort that goes in. So yeah, I would enjoy doing that. It would be interesting. And as you say, you know, take it to the theater. I never even crossed my mind, because I was focused on cinema. I was focused on, you know, the silver screen. I wanted to see the name up there in lights. You know, I wanted to see it on camera. So yeah, theater never crossed my mind.
So,
but Raan, you made a great statement to Robin. Why don't you do it on stage? Because then, sorry, I hope I didn't take your question there, and take it from there, and then, you know, it can totally be moved larger scale from stage into movie. And sorry, that is Raan's idea there. But when you said that, I thought, wow, that's an amazing idea. Absolutely amazing.
and also I think because there are a lot of small theatres, and it would just be a great impetus to see it. Sometimes it's just great to see it out and to produce. And when we get the idea and been able to pull it onto a stage, maybe cut it down a bit, fewer characters, and you can see it in front of you. And then you can have the involvement of working with the people. This is how you want it to look. And go through the rehearsal, ironing out all the difficulties, the challenges. You're going to see ironing out the scripts. And sometimes I think with the theatre as well, the advantage, you have the audience. And that's such a great feeling, interacting with the audience. And maybe afterwards it can be taken and filmed, but we have an idea here. And also with an audience, you get instant feedback. And with an audience, live audience, they want to enjoy it. They've come out for the night. They've paid their £5, £10 or how much it is to go to the, so they actually want to enjoy it. And they give you instant feedback. And the joy of seeing what you've produced up on a stage. Yeah, I think it's just an interesting place to start. And I know that, you know, a lot of small theatres now, a lot of theatre now is looking for different people to start writing from different backgrounds who've got different views. So maybe here's the perfect time. And especially after this lockdown ends, when people gonna want to go and see a show. They're gonna want to go out. They're gonna want to intermingle as well. They've been separated for months to see a live show. So that was just an idea. So Robin, I know you've got a script that you've been working on. Don't tell us the ins and outs of it yet. Don't tell us the ins and outs, but where are you going with that from here?
So I'm focusing very much on these let's call them the micro animations. And I wrote another script about 10 years ago, a kind of extended treatment, which I was running past a friend of mine. And it's based on what inspired me is a very strange event. I don't know, you probably know this, Brian. I don't know, you may all know it, you might not. So let me run it past you. So Roberto Duran was the middleweight champion of the world. And he fought Sugar Ray Leonard in their second fight, because Duran fought the first fight and he won, and he fought the fight of his life. But in the second fight, Sugar Ray learned from that, and he dismantled Roberto Duran, so much so that he walked away from the fight. And what he said was, no más, Spanish for no more. And that event really, really resonated with me, because you had this amazing sports person who was a champion who reached this point where he said no more. And I could never understand in my mind. Obviously, Roberto Duran, look, he's a wonderful boxer and he's known for being a bit of a character as well. And, you know, and so I want to explore that. You know, I kind of see it in business. In business, they call it like a tipping point. You get to a point and then, you know, your business might shoot up or it might go down, or something might happen. But I want to explore this no más point in a screenplay. Of you know, maybe someone who reaches that point and understand, you know, with the background of how they got there, or how they recover from it, or whatever. But that's what I'm playing with again in my mind, and that's kind of what I'm working on.
Okay then, well, Robin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. For you to share what you've gone through, the challenges. And I hope that something's come from this that I think I'm inspired. I think we're all inspired to kind of create something. And I think, I don't know what you think about this, Annie. It's the collaboration between all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody brings something to the table, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So, and I think if we can tap into this collaboration and hopefully we can inspire all of us to, you know, let's go for that idea, you know, that let's give it a shot. Let's go for it. Let's write that story. Let's paint that piece. Let's write that music. And we all kind of, you know, we're growing with each other and we're learning from each other. And that's, I think, the extraordinary coming out of the ordinary.
Nice.
Extraordinary coming out of it. And I think that's the beautiful bit about this. So, Robin, I think I would like to come back in a year or so.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Come back with a year and discuss to see where you are. Because I think also some of the great things are, let's learn as well from the challenges that you're going to face, which are, I think, are the great learning tools, you know, the challenges that are going to come up when you're producing your next idea, your next script, your next play, or whatever it is. So I want to say thank you very much, Kweku, for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Lovely.
Annie, as always, thank you very much.
Grand Rising, thank you.
And Robin, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for sharing so openly with us on today's show.
Love you all. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. So thank you for joining Raan Oosha's show number 7 on Conversations on Art. And goodbye. Ciao.